Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have taken place around the world this week. First, a look at the headlines. Taliban on the rampage in strife-ravaged Afghanistan carries out a string of terror attacks against government and foreign targets as part of its summer offensive. Afghan government struggling to control onslaught. Migrants' mass graves found in Malaysia point at criminal deaths of a human trafficking nexus from Myanmar to Southeast Asia. United Nations calls for stronger corrective measures to protect migrants in Asia as well as Europe. Crisis in FIFA with 9 top officials arrested for massive corruption. They are charged with presiding over what's been termed a World Cup of fraud. Probe underway into massive bribery for marketing rights and World Cup contracts. And Ireland becomes the world's first nation to vote in same-sex marriages. A thumbs up from rights activists, but the Vatican calls it a defeat for humanity. Well, our top focus on the show this week. It's been a particularly bad month for Afghanistan, with the Taliban stepping up what it calls its spring offensive of nationwide terror. Several parts of the country have been hit by a series of high-profile attacks on foreigners and government targets over the past 2 weeks, deepening concerns over whether Afghan security forces can cope after most foreign troops left at the end of 2014.
Elite teams of the Afghan security force look to retake a guest house in the upscale diplomatic quarter of Kabul held by the Taliban insurgents. Over a dozen big explosions, besides countless smaller ones, and gunfire went on through the night before the 4 Taliban gunmen were neutralized and powerful arms seized in the wee hours of Wednesday. Or another Taliban siege, this time a police hostel in Kandahar in Helmand province, where the group holds major sway. At least 19 policemen and 7 soldiers killed, dozens wounded. The latest sign of mounting bloodshed in Afghanistan. Deaths among government forces have spiked in 2015.
ساعت 11 شب بود که صدای 2 انفجار بسیار قوی در گوش ما رسید. از 11 شب که انفجار شد، بعد از او هم صدای فیر تا 5 صبح جریان داشت.
May has been riddled with a spate of Taliban attacks against government targets and foreigners. They come in response to a government operation hoping to reduce the impact of the Taliban's annual warm weather offensive. This has even extended to forming local militias and asking old warlords for military help. Besides the fight-and-run guerrilla tactics, the Taliban has unleashed suicide attacks, targeted assassinations and kidnappings. The first big one was the storming of the Park Plaza Hotel in Kabul on the 13th of May, killing 14 people. Over the next few days, Taliban militants really stepped up the heat, first against the EU, then at the Ministry of Justice. In the last week, there has been a massive truck blast in Zabul province, a siege to the police compound in Kandahar, and an overnight guest house attack in Kabul, causing numerous deaths, both of civilians, government officials and foreigners. For the Afghan government, it's an uphill battle. Afghan forces are now solely responsible for security after NATO's combat mission formally ended in December, with a small follow-up force staying on to train and support the local personnel. Earlier this month, NATO formally announced plans to retain a small military presence in Afghanistan after 2016 to help strengthen the local security forces. But the fact remains, there's little visible in terms of controlling the Taliban or their terror rivals, the Islamic State. No signs of ill-fated Afghanistan's troubles easing. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me for a chat this week on the program is former Ambassador to Afghanistan, Mr. Vivek Katju. Ambassador, thank you for joining me on the program.
You're welcome.
Ambassador, there have been several high-profile attacks in the recent past, especially this month. The month of May has seen several attacks carried out by the Taliban in Afghanistan. We've seen a spate of attacks after the Western troops really have left the country. So can we say that the Afghan government is not able to cope with the situation right now?
I think the Afghan government and its security forces are obviously under very great pressure. And this pressure is not only on the security front, but it's also political. Some of the steps that President Ghani has taken have not been popular. For example, he's reaching out to Pakistan. He's wanting to have an agreement between the intelligence services of the two countries. So, all told, the Afghan government is not showing signs of complete stability at the moment. Besides, it is a government of unity. We all know how this government came into being. It was on the basis of an election that was deeply flawed. So we'll really have to wait and watch to see how things develop.
How do you read the tactics of the Afghan government right now? They're trying to form militias. They're reaching out to warlords, old warlords, to try and help them fight the Taliban. Do you think it's going to work?
Look, this is not something new. What they are doing is going back to an old traditional policy of the Afghan state, a policy which is rooted in history. Kabul always had, for the security and defense of Afghanistan's borders especially, allowed local militias to come up.
Yes.
And local militias were, of course, loyal to Kabul, but they had a fair degree of autonomy. And they were also financed from Kabul, but despite that, they had this degree of autonomy. Now, the term warlords, to my mind, is terribly misleading. Warlords gives us an idea that these are people without the law, they are unpopular, they are despotic, etc. These are these leaders who emerged from the Afghan jihad. All of them might not have been in the democratic tradition, but they are authentic local leaders, and large sections of Afghans respect them. So they are not people who are Johnnies come lately. What the Afghan government now seems to be realizing is that it needs the support of local political leadership. There is this superstructure of the democratic state, and that is as it should be. The Afghan constitution has to be respected. But the realities of Afghanistan cannot be ignored.
You know, in the midst of everything that's happening, you can throw in the Islamic State as well, because the Islamic State suddenly wants to, gain superiority in that particular region. And we've seen supporters of the Islamic State and the Taliban clash in the recent past. It happened on Monday itself. So is that now going to be a problem, an issue that is going to cause more trouble?
I think there are two things which are new, which will bear watching. First is that the troubles are no longer confined to the traditional areas of the south and eastern part of the country. They have spread to the north. And we'll really have to see what is happening, for example, in a place like Kunduz. Now, as far as the ISIS is concerned, my impression is that they are not people who were apolitical and who are now suddenly becoming followers of ISIS or raised the ISIS flag. That there are splits within the militants themselves, splits, say, within the Taliban. And some of these people who are splitting from the main body of the Taliban and other militant groups are raising the ISIS flag. So we'll really have to see how this all plays out, because there are two dimensions. One is the struggle within the militancy itself for supremacy. Because there was the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, and now in this mix comes the ISIS. And there are American generals who are saying that it can't be ignored. I don't think we should sort of emphasize this at the moment. The second is the struggle of the militancy as a whole against the Afghan state. And there, whatever Pakistan may say, I do believe that their policies are terribly ambivalent and that's putting it mildly.
Talking about Pakistan, the ISI recently, held talks or facilitated the talks between the Chinese as well as all the stakeholders in Afghanistan. What does China really have to do with Afghanistan? What is it that China really wants to achieve from all of this?
I think the Chinese were traditionally very cautious of getting involved in in a major cooperative endeavor on the security front in Afghanistan. That seems to be changing. One can interpret this in various ways. My own feeling is that it is linked to the Pakistan-China economic corridor. I think that is a project where the Chinese are going to put a lot of emphasis, which they will pursue very purposefully. For this, they also need a settled Afghanistan.
Yes.
This is a new element which is coming in. So apart from using Afghanistan's natural resources, this access to Gwadar, and in course of time, we'll also have to see whether they'll make sort of moves to get access via Iran too. You can't put that past the Chinese. So their involvement in Afghanistan or at the moment also is to be linked to this, apart from the factor of the Uyghur revolt in China itself, in Xinjiang.
Indeed. All right, Ambassador, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for putting things into perspective for us as far as the entire Afghanistan issue is concerned.
Very welcome.
Well, lots happening in Afghanistan. Of course, we'll keep our eyes keenly glued to the situation in Afghanistan and keep bringing you up to date with everything that happens there. In the meantime, of course, we'll slip into a short break now. But still to come, temperatures rise between the US and China on the latter's construction activities in the South China Sea. China rebukes allegations. That and much more to come. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, snowballing crises around illegal migrants both in Asia and in Europe seem to take on newer dimensions every few days. In Malaysia, authorities have discovered mass graves and camps where traffickers confined illegal migrants. While stressing on the need for a more proactive approach to the problem in Asia, the UN has slammed the European Union for not doing enough against it in the Mediterranean. Here's more.
Kos Island, Greece. A group of some 300 migrants sailed in here on Tuesday on 6 overcrowded dinghy-type boats. Syrians and Afghans who'd risked everything for a better life. They've been taken inland, accommodated in abandoned buildings as refugees.
Η Ελλάδα είναι μία από τις χώρες που δέχεται ισχυρή, μεγάλη πίεση και αντιμετωπίζει σοβαρά προβλήματα και έχει συνέπειες η κατάσταση αυτή.
Greece is to be part of an EU plan to relocate asylum seekers to other member states. This is just one of many migrations. Other places in Spain and Italy have reported such influxes along their coastlines. Numbers run into thousands over the last few months. The European Commission proposes that 40,000 asylum seekers who have arrived in Italy and Greece be relocated across the continent in response to what it considers an emergency situation in both the countries. The UN points out the need for wider measures.
Among these migrants are some of the most vulnerable people in the world. A more humane, less mean-spirited response to their plight would be more worthy of member states of the United Nations. Tighter control of international borders, increased border surveillance, and a reduction of channels for regular entry only force migrants to seek more precarious and dangerous avenues.
Shift to a similar problem in Asia, one that has taken uglier dimensions. These mass graves found in villages in Malaysia's interiors supposedly housed bodies of migrants kept captive in camps here by human traffickers. Most were Rohingya Muslims, people who had fled Myanmar for fear of persecution there. Figures 139 mass graves, 28 camps in Malaysia and Thailand, with an estimated 300 people living in each, tell a gruesome story. Some 3,600 migrants have landed in Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand over just the last month. Nearly 3 times that number is said to be at sea. The 3 countries have agreed to provide refuge and initiated rescue measures even as they seek UN help. But it's a slow process yet.
Indonesia and Malaysia are providing a temporary lifesaver, and we welcome it as such. But it is not enough. ASEAN states need to fulfill their obligations to search and rescue all those in peril at sea and to offer lasting protection to people who are fleeing persecution.
These are Rohingya refugees living in a shelter in Myanmar, people rescued by the Navy off the country's shores. Myanmar refuses to accept these people, saying they come from Bangladesh, in effect rejecting that it is to blame for the crisis at all. So, who owns these people? Where does the crisis stem from? And how should it be controlled? The questions persist. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, let's take a look now at some other events that made headlines around the world this week in our Globe Watch.
The US has sent out a stern warning to China to immediately halt ongoing construction activities in the South China Sea. Washington also released a video showing Beijing's reclamation work in the region. China rebutted all allegations, reiterating that they are building a new island which will benefit all claimants of the South China Sea. US officials say China has added some 2,000 acres to 5 outposts in the Spratly Islands, including 1,500 acres since the start of this year. The islands are claimed by several other countries in the region, including Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. The Syrian army has withdrawn from the strategic city of Ariha in the northwestern province of Idlib that borders Turkey. Ariha was the last remaining army stronghold in Idlib and has fallen to Al-Qaeda's Syrian offshoot Nusra Front. The leader of the front, in an exclusive interview to Al Jazeera, said that the front is focusing on capturing Damascus and toppling President Bashar al-Assad. The Syrian conflict is now in its 5th year and has claimed more than 220,000 lives. Mathematician and Nobel laureate John Nash, who inspired the movie A Beautiful Mind, was killed in a car crash along with his wife in New Jersey. The couple were in a taxi when the driver lost control and crashed into a guardrail while driving on the New Jersey Turnpike. Nash, who was 86, was awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1994 for his work on game theory and the mathematics of decision-making.
World football was plunged into turmoil this week as 9 top FIFA executives were arrested and a host of senior soccer-related officials were indicted for massive fraud over media and marketing rights for international tournaments. World Cup hosting awards for 2018 and 2022 are also under the scanner. FIFA President Sepp Blatter, though not arrested, has frequently weathered reports of corruption and yet remains unfazed. Here's more.
At the FIFA Congress, the beginning of a 5th term as FIFA president for Sepp Blatter, after his opponent, Jordan's Prince Ali bin Al Hussein, withdrew from the process. Victory despite being asked to quit in the face of a major bribery scandal FIFA is immersed in. Steering this ship now comes as a bigger challenge than ever before. Blatter promises wide-scale changes and corrections.
It was a very difficult Congress due to the circumstances of these events and these, I would say, also kind of tragic events, Wednesday and Thursday in Zurich, and all with the media in the world, what they said about FIFA. The message of to the fans is now trust and confidence. I know that's not so easy, but we have to show that we are doing some movements.
Only 3 days before this election, early morning arrests of 9 top FIFA officials and 5 corporate executives news of multi-million-dollar corruption in the world's most powerful sporting body sent out shockwaves. The FIFA honchos are alleged to have systematically paid and agreed to pay well over $150 million in bribes and kickbacks to obtain lucrative media and marketing rights to international soccer tournaments. Hosting awards for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups are under the scanner too.
IRSCI special agents exposed complex money laundering schemes, uncovered millions of dollars in untaxed income. This really is the World Cup of fraud, and today we are issuing FIFA a red card.
Besides fans around the globe and the institution itself, the charges have sent sponsors into a tizzy. Many have threatened to end sponsorships if soccer's governing body doesn't take quick clean-up action. Blatter's fifth term as FIFA president already has an agenda ready, and at its centre is a massive clean-up exercise to pull sport's biggest body out of the abyss of unprecedented shame. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, Ireland this week sent out a loud and clear message to the world, the message of equality in marriage. It became the first country in the world to adopt same-sex marriage via a popular national vote. The referendum found that 62% were in favour of changing the constitution to allow gay and lesbian couples to marry. Here's more on that historic day in Ireland and how the world reacted to it.
Majority of votes in favour of the proposal, 467,307.
A landslide victory for the Yes camp that voted in favour of same-sex marriages. A whopping 62% voted in favour of the referendum, making Ireland the first nation to legalise gay marriages by voting for it. A dramatic social shift in a country which is traditionally Catholic. For many, the victory carried with it loads of emotions. A victory after years of fighting. Some even planned a wedding on the spot.
It's just wonderful, like we're together over 16 years and everybody's been asking us, should we run out and buy a hat?
We've come such a long way and now we're proud to stand up to the world and say we're a wonderful country.
Ireland decriminalised homosexuality in 1993, that's 22 years back. Since then, there's been a slow but sure push from rights activists and politicians towards legalising gay marriages too. The vote has shown up what Catholics as well as activists term a mindset revolution.
That yes is heard loudly across the living world as a sound of pioneering leadership from our people, and hopefully it will also be a sound across the generations of gay men and women born, as we say, before our time, who took their secrets with them when they moved on.
And the other side, reactions from the church ranging from lukewarm acceptance to outright condemnation. Even as the Archbishop in Dublin said the vote raised the need for a reality check in the church, the Vatican, that's been a vehement critic of homosexuality, termed it a social ill finding root. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican's Secretary of State, said the Church must take account of this reality, but in the sense that it must strengthen its commitment to evangelization. He termed the move a defeat for Christian principles and a defeat for humanity. But there has been massive applause too. US Vice President Joe Biden, who has once been a staunch opponent, even said US should follow in Ireland's footsteps. Political parties, industrialists and celebrities have endorsed the move. Ireland joins the likes of Britain, France and Spain to become the 19th country in the world to legalize gay marriage. This one is special because for the first time it came with an overwhelming popular vote. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, shifting focus now, it's time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's our sports action. Sevilla won the record fourth Europa League trophy after beating Dnipro in a thrilling final in Warsaw on Wednesday. The Spanish side had to come back from a goal down as Nikola Kalinic headed the Ukrainians' Dnipro into an early lead. Sevilla then responded with two quick goals and went into the lead. Ruslan Rotan's clever free kick made it 2-2, but Carlos Bacca scored again to seal victory for Sevilla and with it a place in next season's Champions League. Outgoing Liverpool captain Steven Gerrard's debut for Los Angeles Galaxy has been pencilled in for 11th July. The 34-year-old midfielder is set to make his first appearance in a home fixture against Mexico's Club America in the International Champions Cup. Gerrard is currently on an end-of-season break in Dubai with his Liverpool teammates. The former England skipper has signed a 2-year deal with LA Galaxy after announcing in January he would leave Liverpool following a 17-year professional career at Anfield. Usain Bolt was an easy winner in his first race of the year in Europe but failed to break the 20 seconds in the 200 metres at the Golden Spike meet in Ostrava. In wet conditions, Jamaica's six-time Olympic gold medalist clocked 20.13 seconds, well outside his 19.19 world record to beat American Isaiah Young. The Jamaican said that he was building up for the World Championships in Beijing to be held in August and conceded that he was well off from where he needed to be by the summer. And finally, the 12th Havana Biennial is underway in Cuba, and an interactive New York artist installation, An Ice Rink, is an artistic representation of the recent thaw in US-Cuba relations. The simple pleasure of skating around the rink was a big draw. Take a look at this. I'm Frank Pereira saying goodbye. Have a great week ahead.